Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Immigration Power Hour. We are lucky enough to have Marina Shepelsky here, immigration lawyer in New York City and an immigrant herself, which is a good thing. So welcome, Marina. I'm happy to have you here. Why don't you introduce yourself quickly?
Hi, guys. Hello. Happy to be here. Thank you, Ian, for inviting me.
Yeah, no, always happy to have you on the show and see you, Marina. Well, I guess some of the stuff, though, Marina, you've put a lot of work into building your business. Obviously, been at it since 2004. And really, you've built a business without doing mostly for no paid marketing. You've done it all with social media and networking and being in front of people. And what do you think was the most critical thing to actually build a business like that? Because I think there are a lot of lawyers out there that want to have a business that's thriving and works, but they want to have more of a brand too. And maybe they're scared of building it, or maybe something else is going on. So where did you start to actually build the company the way you did?
The first thing to realize is it's a business, just like you said. Law practice is a business, and you have to treat it as such. For us lawyers, it's super hard because there's so many ethical considerations for attorneys, and they convince us when you go to law school and you take all your ethics classes, when you take the bar and so on, that you're almost like in the service of others, as if you don't have your own business considerations to think about. But the first thing you should keep in mind, as soon as I began thinking of it as a business, I started to read about operating the businesses. As soon as I called myself a CEO versus just like an attorney, my mindset began to shift, and I started to think in terms of, okay, a business needs to have marketing, a business needs to have advertising. What about sales? There's a huge sales aspect in law that people don't like to talk about, but it's a big aspect. I mean, if you don't sell somebody on your services, they won't sign up for you, and you're not going to make any money, and you won't have a chance to even do that kind of case to learn and grow as a professional attorney. So as soon as I started to think about it as a business, that's when things started to come together. And the other thing is consistency. If you were going to go and you're going to be serious about automation, if you're going to be serious about marketing, if you're going to be serious about sales, you have to build the system, you have to build the process and stick to it and keep improving it. It's kind of like riding a bike while you're adding parts to it.
Yeah, no, and that's a really good point you touched on is, you really do need to be consistent. But how do you actually be consistent when you're also having to do all the legal work? I mean, like a company like mine, we can outsource a little bit of it. We can work on things, and that's good. And not that we necessarily do that. We take a lot of pride in what we do, but we have the option to go on sites like Upwork and just find people that can, do stuff for us. So how do you actually balance, being a lawyer and having these, concerns and really wanting to do a good job, not just the scary side of it, and also building a practice?
So the first thing you have to do, because it's a business, as I discussed, is you have to think about your processes and break them down into the smallest parts, and then understanding the big picture. So you have the sales process of when somebody calls you and you sell them on scheduling a consultation, getting paid for it, pre-booking it, prepaying for it. That's already a process that I just mentioned in 2 sentences. That's like pages of breaking down the process and describing it. That's just one aspect of it, right? So you have to learn to balance your personal life, your work as a lawyer, per se, work on the cases, and running the business. Start thinking about delegating to other professionals. Hire people who are better than you. Honestly, like for things that are not like law related, it's good to hire professionals. I have a bookkeeper who became our general manager because I couldn't handle running payroll, paying bills, dealing with employees, and somebody taking time off. I don't want to be the one who has to deal with that anymore. So that's one example of delegating to a professional who's much better than you at doing things like that. Hire a good paralegal, and the first thing that I learned to delegate was hiring an associate, a good attorney that I trusted that could do some of the legal work as well. Otherwise, being a CEO of my practice, that's a full-time job in its own. And somebody has to take care of the clients. Somebody has to take care of the bills. Someone has to take care of keeping statistics. How many people did we talk to this month? How many people became clients? What kind of cases are there? And understanding, where are you going? That's another thing to do. Like, you have to have a vision of where you want your practice. Some people are comfortable with a very small practice, and that's cool. You can make even more money than someone else trying for a big practice at a low profit margin. You can have a small practice, or you could have a big practice. Do you want to be a CEO of a big practice? You can't even imagine all the things that come up when you're running a team of more than 20 people versus only managing 2 people. You know, it might not be for you to manage 20 people, and that's a big commitment. So you really have to start thinking about what would make you happy in your life, and a work-life balance is super, super important.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you touched on that, Marina, because I think that's something that gets kind of skipped, not just with immigration lawyers, but just with business owners in general. Like my mom actually owns a business called the Self-Care Passport, you know, teaching business owners how to take care of themselves because it's such, you know, such a big topic.
Even for
But
me,
that's, yeah, absolutely. And it's definitely something you have to work at all the time. But I mean, overall though, I mean, it sounds like you've had a lot of goals throughout all this. Like you're pretty goal oriented. You have all these things. I mean, but also, you know, you were willing to take the risk naturally. So, but I mean, for people that are a bit more like skittish and everything, like what's one thing that they could do to maybe start going in that direction of getting more cases and building without, you know, breaking the bank or having that pit in your stomach all the time?
for me personally, I realized that in my field, which is immigration law, and in my practice, which, you know, we mostly work with families, humanitarian cases like asylum, people connect to you as a human being to another human being. So they like to see you as a human being, as the person that you are as a whole, talk to them and listening to you, listening to your videos and learning from you, right? So I realized that people loved my videos. So for me, when I started in my videos, like, okay, yes, sometimes if I'm doing a TikTok, I'm doing a little fun stuff, like maybe like a little mini dance, not like a real dance, but like moving my arms and whatever, in front of the camera and doing the trendy stuff on TikTok. But most of the time, I'm just explaining basic immigration processes, and people love that. So if you're not ready to like start, I mean, that's a good place to start. Start making videos talking about things that you know. It doesn't have to be a complex legal process. It could just be something simple as explaining how to make a will. You know, what goes into the will, who are the witnesses, who has to sign, who has to notarize. If you're doing that kind of law, you know, what's a proxy, you know, very basic stuff that you think that people know, but they actually do not. And a good approach to this is explain it as if you're talking to like a 15 or 16-year-old teenager. Keep the language simple, make it very accessible, explain what you do to people. The power of education as a marketing tool is tremendous. That is something you can do on your phone for free. Buy a cheap ring light with a phone holder, put in your phone, put on some makeup if you want. I don't usually care what I look like at this point. You know, I dress nice all the time now. And you just sit in front of your phone and just start talking about what you love to do. People will connect to that. You're good at what you do, that you know what you're talking about. You don't even have to do anything. And then at the end, you say, call us today if you have a question about your will. And that's it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think people want to do business with authentic people. I actually have a good friend that has a lisp and he makes content online, not self-conscious about it at all. But then people message him saying how much they inspired him doing that. And that's kind of like what people connect with because it's very authentic.
I
And that's
have
kind
an
of the thing.
accent. I didn't used to be a good public speaker. I never wanted to do public speaking. Somehow I had to overcome that to make money in my practice because it's a business and I have 3 children and I was a single mother for the longest time, over 10 years, and I had to support them. We had no other way to have a nice house, have my kids do after school activities, live in a nice neighborhood. You need to make money for that. And your law practice, if you're a lawyer, is the way to do that. It's very simple. You know, the things that you will do to make a living as a woman, especially, you know, are sometimes you have nowhere to go. There's no plan B. You have to take the risks, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's good. And then, well, I guess that's one thing. How did you actually balance having a family and wanting to take care of them, and overall just wanting to have fun too, with actually building a business and you have a thriving practice now?
It's hard. It's really hard. I don't know if I'm really good at it, and any mother out there will understand what I'm saying. A working mother always feels that she is not a good mother, you know, because we work, and I live, for example, in a suburban area where a lot of my my kids' friends' moms are stay-at-home moms, and they take them to after-school activities, and they participate in the PTA. And I never do. I never go to the student-teacher conferences because my kids are A students. So I feel like, okay, I don't have to do that. Some things that I do, I'll get involved. It's every day. Every day is a balancing act. And a new day brings in new challenges. They like to tell me at the last minute they have a project due the next day. And I have to like sit down late and do a project with them once in a while. But I have actually started to teach my kids, just like you should with your employees, independence really early on. So I would tell them, honestly, your mom is a working mom. Mom has to go to work so that we have nice food, nice clothes, nice house for you to have a comfort level of living. So you got to take care of your meal when you get from school. They're teenagers. They know how to make themselves like mac and cheese. We have a lot of things that's easy for them to pop in the oven after school and heat up without asking us to cook them, lunch or sometimes dinner. My kids are used to it. I mean, I try to balance by spending all of my free time with them that I can on the weekends, while having a marriage and spending time with my husband and making him feel important too. And at work, you try to do your best with your employees. Delegate, delegate, delegate. That's what this is about. As much as you can, delegate to good people that you trust and let it go too. Sometimes they will make mistakes, maybe once out of every 10 times. And you have to be okay with that because you make mistakes too. You're human as well.
That's something I've noticed from having. Oh yeah. That's something I've noticed from having employees is that you learn a lot about yourself from that. You're like, oh, maybe I don't explain those things that well, or maybe I don't. So looking in the mirror always helps for sure. No, it's good. Well, it sounds like you've actually applied a lot of the business concepts to your personal life too. So obviously you're being organized, doing that, making sure stuff gets done on a certain thing, sticking to a schedule. And it sounds like you've done that with your family as well, which is good.
I run my life by my calendar. So every appointment I have for my personal life goes on my calendar, no exception. I have a chiropractor's appointment, I put it on my calendar. I had a medical procedure yesterday. I took a whole day off. That was hard for me to take an entire day of no contact with work, but I had to do it for my health. My kids' activities, whatever, I put it on my calendar. And I'm honest with myself how much time it will take. And people at work know not to schedule any meetings, anything like that during that time. If you have to make your personal life just as important as like when you have a court hearing, you put it on your calendar and you put preparation for the court hearing on your calendar. Just like that, your personal appointments, your kids' appointments go on the calendar. This way you have a balance. You have to treat everything in life the same. You cannot be like non-organized in your personal life and expect to be organized at work because people are one way about everything. So I had to learn organization. It took me years. I'm not a naturally organized person. It was definitely a learning process. I had to force myself to make it a habit when I'm at the doctor's office and they schedule an appointment for me. On the spot, I put it on my calendar. I don't wait until later. I'll forget. And I forget even now sometimes. My personal stuff, I tend to forget once in a while. But so it doesn't come natural to me. You see, it's something you learn. But you have to enforce it. Consistency, consistency, consistency.
And that touches on a really important concept, Marina, is, you might not be naturally good at something that you need to become good at.
Yeah, absolutely. I was never a good public speaker. I taught myself and forced myself to let go of a lot of discomfort. And, even now, like I'm talking to you, I'm not really looking at myself on the camera, although I could see my reflection. Because it's not always comfortable. You just do it. Just do it.
Yeah, no, that's the idea. Action cures fear, as they say.
You just do it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's the idea. All right, amazing, Marina. Well, thanks so much for being on. So I guess the big question we have, like in closing, though, is so obviously I think there are a lot of people that see you online. They see you at the conferences. And they really kind of idolize what you've been able to do. But they're scared a little bit. So what would you say to someone who's a little scared of kind of taking that next leap, even if it's just making more content, hiring that extra person? Yeah, what would you say to that person?
Everyone has fears. You're not human if you don't have a lot of fears. Like honestly, a lot of fears, and we're all different, so we have fears of different things. The way to overcome them, for me personally, is just do what you're afraid of, and the first step is to acknowledge what you exactly are you afraid of. So people who are afraid of making videos on social media usually are afraid of looking bad or sounding stupid, right? If you are an attorney, you have training and education to sound good to people. Maybe in your own head it sounds stupid. That's what people are afraid of. But to other people, it sounds good. So you have to think of what your audience is receiving, not just what it sounds like. Like, step outside of your own head is what I'm saying. Try to think of what somebody else who doesn't know you sees and hears when they talk to you, when they look at your video and whatever. And usually you will realize whatever you're afraid of is just in your head. There's no reality that matches that. The reality is you sound professional, you look great, you might have, you know, said something incorrectly, you might have an accent or whatever it is, but you just move through it. And if you repeat it over and over again, it just becomes a comfort to you. The same thing if you're an attorney with speaking in court. You have to, I mean, the first couple of years I used to cry. I used to go home and be upset. And I used to like just come home and lay in the dark for an hour to you know, the stress of being an attorney and going to court to fight for somebody's life, like I do immigration. And then the judge yells at you and calls you names sometimes. Not like, you know, they don't curse you, but they'll say you're unprofessional. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do that. Learning to stand up for yourself. For women, it's always hard because we're raised to be nice girls. So speaking out, being like sometimes very firm, and people will interpret it sometimes as you're being nasty. But you have to overcome your fear to do that. It took me a couple of years. This is normal. This is like for your kids when they go to school the first day. They're afraid. They hold down to your leg when you take them to daycare for the first time. They cry. They don't want to be there. By the end of the year, they don't want to see you when you come pick them up. They love it in school. It's overcome. Your whole life is overcoming fears. Also, remember, you've overcome stuff to go to law school and be an attorney and get admitted. And you did a lot of work to get admitted. It's a big job. Right? So you're capable. You have everything you need to be successful.
That's good. And that's an awesome level of belief, Marina. I think so many people need to hear that. Well, it's great having you on here today, Marina. And so always a pleasure to see you and have you on. Really grateful we got to work with you when we did in our firm.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. I hope this helps someone out there to start doing marketing for themselves and other things.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, everything you want is kind of on the other side of fear, and that's most fear is just made up anyway. So that's a good thing. All right, amazing, Marina.
Remember.
Yeah, it really is. Thank you.
Thank you.